Landlord texts at 11 p.m. on the 4th of July asking for rent. I used to live in a house owned and managed by a landlord. The lease had a policy that said rent is due within 4 days of the first of the month. Both the landlord and the property were in the same city, so we would typically just mail the check the week before, and that gave it plenty of time. So month 10 of our 12-month lease comes around, and after enjoying the festivities of the 4th of July, which was a Monday this year, I get a text from the landlord at 11:20 p.m. saying, "Hey tenants, just wanted to let you know I haven't received your rent in the 4-day grace period that it is due. From the 1st of every month to 12 a.m. on the 4th. Please give me a call ASAP to arrange payment. Thank you." 12 a.m. on the 4th being almost 23 hours ago notwithstanding. I'm thinking, this is the most American thing to happen on Independence Day. I see this text around 11:40 p.m. So I immediately call, offering my sincere apologies that we could not get mail delivered on a national holiday, and if he would kindly provide his bank routing number, I could wire him the rent money electronically. The landlord then made some excuse like, "I'll give you one extra grace period day just this once." But if he was going to interrupt my holiday, then I was sure going to interrupt his. And guess what was sitting in his mailbox the morning of the 5th? Back when I rented, the one time my check was late, the landlord called to make sure everything was right and let me know they hadn't received it yet. It was not an accusatory call. It was a, "You are one of my best tenants at always paying on time. So I am guessing it got lost in the mail." He also called halfway through the month, well after it was due. It did in fact get lost in the mail. Thankfully I had more than enough money in the bank at that time, so I canceled the check we mailed. And this was what finally got him to set it up so I could pay electronically. I then paid that month and the next month, but no late fees. And to be clear, he wasn't that great of a landlord, but dude knew I always paid on time, unlike most of his tenants. So he wasn't going to kill the golden goose. Till Americans, physically, pay rent by check or cash deposit. Did a little research. I had no idea. Some of you guys had to do that. It's like the 90s over there. I think it's as bizarre for Americans to still use checks for payments as it is for the Japanese to use faxes instead of emails. Dude wanted to puff up but backed down when he needed to actually do something about it. Had something similar happen to my family too. Last year I think the 4th landed on a Sunday and our rent was due on Monday. We figured it should be fine. It's not the 4th. Bank should be open so we can deposit the rent like normal. Now at the time I didn't work a full-time job, so I wasn't aware that if a national holiday falls on a weekend, the company would just take the next business day off like Monday. Or if it's on a Saturday they would take Friday off and such. So when we arrived we were surprised to find that the bank was closed. So our rent was gonna be a day late. Messaged out landlord about our ignorance, and luckily he was pretty chill and understanding and said it was okay. You just mail a check? Do you live in the 50s? Why didn't you pay your rent on the 1st? I don't get it. If you mailed the check a week before the 1st it should have arrived then. It sounds like your landlord was giving you a notice so you didn't get charged a late fee even though you were already in the grace period. Sure, he could have called you sooner, but that's not really on him. He also could have said nothing and just charged you a late fee. The way you wrote this makes it seem it was just a simple check if everything is alright. The landlord didn't try to evict you. Just asked what was up, and when you explained, was reassured and decided to let it go and wait one more day. The only one more day is the only thing that indicates bad intentions. Relationship. The start of the day versus end of the day, when only the day is defined for deadlines, is a common Confusion, misunderstanding. And I guess the landlord understood it as start of the day, and you understood it as end of the day. No need to overthink it. I mean, you should probably pay your rent on time on the first of the month. The grace period is just there in case of issues, not for you to pay 4 days late. I've never heard of a 4-day grace period. That's actually really nice. Honestly, failing to see what the landlord did wrong here. You didn't pay on time. And he gave a reminder. What's the issue? Sounds complicated and a bit archaic. No such things as checks here, and payments are always directly to and from bank accounts via your phone app usually. Far simpler way to do your banking. Technically, if you're mailing in your rent, the post date on the check counts as the day you paid it. As long as the check was posted before the due date, your rent was on time regardless of when it was delivered. At least that's how it works in my state. I use the free bill pay service that most banks and credit unions have in the US to have the bank mail a paper check. They usually have a guarantee that payment will arrive on the specified date. But I still pick a few days early since I really don't want to deal with filling a claim. It's also handy that payments can be set up as recurring, so I don't forget. One time my landlord bitches about not getting rent on the due date. It turned out her bank was rejecting all payments that day. What I'm learning from this is that the most surprising thing is that people still pay rent with checks. That's why I put managed by landlord here. Property management companies all have electronic checks. The landlord also wanted cashier's checks, which you can't just write and have to go to the bank for. Once rented a place and had a lot of trouble with the rent check not arriving on time, or occasionally not at all. I always mailed it in plenty of time, so I was really confused about why I was always getting threatened with late fees. A few times I even had to drive across town and hand deliver a new check. Turns out this genius got her own address wrong on the lease, so occasionally some smart mail carrier would get it to her based on name and street, but half the time it was just undeliverable. He forgot about the mail holiday. Would have been no issue if you considered the holiday and paid your rent on time. Pay your rent on time and it's not an issue. I fail to see why you could not have paid on time. You could have paid the day before. You knew there is a holiday in advance. Why not mail the check sooner so it arrives in time? It's your responsibility to make sure the tenant receives the money on time. Perspective from the tenant. Assuming you always pay at the last second. Don't take into account a holiday? I will text you a reminder. Interrupting your holiday or not. If I am reading this correctly, it was your responsibility to get the rent in on time. The holiday and the USPS's schedule are not his problem. He did you a favor by giving you the extra day. How is he the bad guy here?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.